That is true. I think sometimes there are things that people tackle that they shouldn't necessarily do, but we're all very money conscious these days, and learning to do some basic, simple DIY things around your home can save you an awful lot of money. For example, if you've got slow running drains in your kitchen because you know, people always pour a bit of fat down there and food gets stuck down there, you can clean that out really easily by using a solution of bicarbonate of soda and vinegar. Put the bicarb down, flush it through with some vinegar, it creates that nice fizzing volcanic reaction, and it cleans your drains out and saves you having to get a plumber in to have a look.
You're not going to believe this. Last night I did a lamb dinner and I said to the current Mrs. Belfield, I don't know what's happening, but I've got a problem with me drains. So bicarb and vinegar, I put the bicarb down first. Never mind the listeners, they can just occupy themselves for a minute. Bicarb first and then vinegar.
That's right. So put the bicarb down, make sure that the drain is, the sink has to be clear. This won't work with the sink that's got standing water in it. But if the sink is slow running, this is a great fix for it. Put a good slug of bicarb down, a couple of tablespoons, and then follow it through with some vinegar. Let that fizzing reaction take place through the drain. You'll hear it go glug, glug, glug. And then follow it through with some water from the kettle, some boiling water from the kettle, and it should clear out any problems. If, however, you've still got a problem, one of the things that you can do is just dismantle the U-bend underneath the sink. It is screwed together, hand tight, so you don't need any tools, but just make sure you've got a bucket underneath before you start and you've cleared out the cupboard under the sink.
You see, you've already gone too far. It was going so well when it involved me opening a packet. Now I've got to get on my hands and knees and start unscrewing stuff. I've tried to unscrew things for years and it's never worked, Joe. Listen, you're a genius. What I've seen from this whole thing is that it's the small things that matter. It's the little things that people remember. For example, if they sit on the loo and it's wibbly wobbly and you end up falling on the floor, that's going to stick in their memory. It's not the big jobs, it's the small ones.
It's the small jobs, and it's the small jobs that people can tackle themselves. For example, that wonky toilet seat. It is a really, really simple fix. If you just reach behind the back of the toilet bowl, you'll find two bolts that are holding the toilet seat together. You just screw them up nice and tight. Of course, they wibble and they wobble over time and they get a bit loose, but you don't need to get somebody in to do that. You can just do it yourself. But a lot of people have a real fear about even starting on those small jobs because they just don't know what's involved.
I'm noticing there's a theme of a lot of screwing going on this Christmas, Joe. I don't know whether DIY is for me after all, especially with my bad back. How did you get into this? Because, I mean, you're so gorgeous and all of that stuff, and you don't necessarily put the two together, getting household jobs done and looking like you.
Oh, well, you should see me in my overalls. Different story. I mean, for me, I'm a very kind of independent person, and I like to know how things are done. I started at a very young age with my dad, following him around the house. But I also, you know, I've lived on my own, and I've always wanted to know how things work. And the way that I see it is, you know, tackle a job, and even if it does go wrong, at that point you can get someone else in. And even if you're a little bit embarrassed, just blame someone else. Tell them your neighbour did it, or an ex-boyfriend did it.
Good idea. I suppose the other problem is, of course, that money is tight, and that at this time, to get anybody just to come and look at something can be 50, 60, 100 quid. If you're in London, probably 1,000. It's really expensive just to get somebody to come and have a look before they've even done anything.
It can be expensive to get especially little jobs done, because a lot of builders and a lot of tradespeople, they want to tackle the larger projects. So learning a few basic skills and tackling some of these things yourself can save you an awful lot of money. And also you can get them done at a time that's convenient for you. So you can, you know, clean the grout in your bathroom in an evening or a Saturday morning, rather than having to wait in for a plumber to come around and do that. And
you've turned this into mega business. I mean, your entire life has been about sort of creating the DIY world into this phenomenal business that you've done. I mean, it's a huge achievement. How have you managed to do that? I mean, you've got TV shows, you're an entrepreneur, really, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I guess. I think for me it's just a passion. I'm really, really passionate about teaching people how to do some of these things themselves, because not only does it save money, but if you learn to do some basic DIY skills, you have taught yourself a skill for life, and a skill that you can transfer into every single home that you live in. And it's the same with some of these things that we're talking about to do before Christmas. They will last long into the new year. They're not going to stop being spruced up at Christmas time. So it's worth making that time and that investment.
Right, let's go down the list. Number 1 is a dirty bathroom. You see, that's not DIY. That's just lazy people being mucky, isn't it?
Well, you say that, but a lot of people can judge people on mould that's built up on the sealant around the bath and around the shower. And that is DIY, trying to sort that out, because you need to remove the sealant, clean it all out, and then reseal.
Okay, help me with this then. How do I get the black bits? You know, the sort of greeny black bits that get in those gaps. How do I get that off easily?
Well, the first thing to do is tackle them before they become black. So when you see that kind of pinky orangey tinge appear, it looks like a bit of soap residue, but it's actually mould before it turns to black mould. So if you can tackle it then, it's much easier to get rid of. But one of the things that you can do, again, my favourite is a bit of bicarb, a bit of vinegar. I sound like a stuck record with that one, but it really is a great household solution. Rub it in as a paste onto the black grout lines and then scrub it off with a hard brush or a toothbrush if you've got one to hand. An old electric toothbrush works really well.
Are we being hoodwinked into buying too many chemicals and things when in fact the old-fashioned remedies are just as good?
I think there's certain chemicals that are useful, but, something like drain cleaner, like you said with your lamb, when you were cooking your lamb dinner last night, you're going to spend £6 or £7 on some drain unblocker and, pour it down the sink? Kind of seems a bit of a waste of money to me.
Number 2 on my top 10 list is a badly maintained front garden. I always say to ladies, you must trim your bush when the relatives are coming round, don't you think?
Well, I certainly think that that's true, and all it takes is a pruning shear and a bit of time.
Indeed it does, on your hands and knees. Number 3, worn carpets. Now we're getting into money. What can we do about those then?
So worn carpets, a lot of people think that their carpets need to be replaced, but actually if you just hire a carpet steam cleaner from one of your local hardware stores or a local tool hire station, you can bring your carpets up really, really well. They don't cost a lot of money to hire, maybe £20-30, but it's a lot cheaper than buying new carpets.
Can I give you my smart-ass tip how to do your carpets? You know that vanish stuff that they sell that you put in your washing machine when you've got a grubby mark on your clothes? Put a bit of that in your sink, a cloth on your hands and knees, scrub away, comes up beautiful. Telling you.
Yeah, and all that is a bit of time.
And you do end up having to go for a full-body massage because, of course, every muscle in your body aches afterwards, but it's worth it.
But what an excuse to have a massage, eh?
Indeed. Well, any human contact would be nice for me, to be perfectly honest with you. Peeling wallpaper. Now, are we just talking sort of sellotape over that? How we sorting that one out?
Well, you could strategically place a Christmas banner or some bunting over that, couldn't you? But actually, that's also a really
Sorry,
easy thing.
I'm going to have to interrupt you, Joe. That's very common, what you just said. We don't do banners and bunting in my house. Good Lord.
Well, at Christmas time, a lot of people like those maybe more tacky decorations.
Oh, dear. You're inferring these are people in the north, aren't you?
Of course not.
Cracks in the walls. Now we're getting into big jobs, aren't we?
Cracks in the walls? It depends on the size of the crack and why it's there, but hairline cracks and holes where you've had, picture hooks removed, they're really, really simple to fix. You can use the new product by Polycell, Tough Little Polyfiller. You don't even need any tools for that, and it only takes 5 minutes to cover over a crack.
Yeah, well, it does, a bit like my career. Number 9, unattractive hallways. Well, what do we do about that? We've got to redecorate the whole thing or just stick up an enormous Christmas tree?
I think maybe stick up an enormous Christmas tree, but things unattractive hallways can come down to them being full of muddy, welly boots at this time of year, lots of big bulky jackets, so maybe just hide those things away in a bedroom while you've got guests coming round. Isn't
most of this about clutter as well? You just got to declutter. I walk in people's houses and I'm amazed at the piles. I mean, do you have piles in your house?
Oh, unfortunately, I do have piles and piles of clutter in my house, and I try my best to keep on top of it, but it's not always easy. We live in a world where we have a lot of stuff, don't we?
And finally, number 10 is the scuff marks on the walls. Well, there's no excuse for that. That's just common, isn't it?
Yeah, but it happens, especially in hallways, bikes coming in and out, and, buggies, things like that, and they're really easy to fix with a bit of bleach and a scouring pad.
Yeah, well, they should be ashamed of themselves if they've got scuffs on the walls. How dare they? You can find out more by going to polycell.co.uk for more information on the top 10 things that Brits will judge other people's homes on at Christmas. It's a mouthy line to say. Basically, what we've learnt is you need to get on your hands and knees and do a lot of unscrewing, and it'll all sort itself out. That's the advice from Joe Behari. Really lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Alex, and Merry Christmas.